And it is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
Keir Starmer visited the United States with every technique to charm Donald Trump and win his favor. For that, he went beyond and delivered an invitation letter from King Charles to Trump for a state visit. This was done so the UK becomes relevant for Trump, who seems to be very selective about who are American allies. However, this plan has taken a devastating turn, which can make Starmer nervous. Even though Donald Trump accepted the invitation, now the calls to revoke this invitation are growing. In particular, a Scottish First Minister said that Trump should not be allowed to come to the UK until he supports Ukraine. Over 70,000 Britons have run a campaign to stop Trump from coming to the UK. This comes in the context of how Trump and J.D. Vance humiliated Zelensky on his visit to the White House. This leaves Starmer in a dilemma. If the invitation is cancelled, he will be the one to blame because he was the only one who made this arrangement. So, what's happening and how are things backfiring for Starmer? In this video, let's know about the whole story. Keir Starmer must have thought he was playing a masterstroke of diplomacy when he strode into the White House, clutching a carefully crafted gold-embossed letter from King Charles III and personally handed it over to Donald Trump. In his mind, this was the move that would cement Britain's status as an indispensable American ally, a priority in Trump's carefully curated list of international partnerships. It was a desperate attempt to make Britain relevant again, to ensure that post-Brexit Britain still had a seat at the table of global influence. The letter, a rare and highly symbolic state invitation from the British monarch, was supposed to serve as a charm offensive, a way to get Trump's attention in an era where he seemed increasingly selective about who was worthy of American support. But Starmer's diplomatic gamble has blown up in his face with humiliating force. What was meant to be a grand gesture of statesmanship has instead turned into an international embarrassment, one that has left his credibility in tatters, his party in chaos, and the British public seething with anger. His bid to use the monarchy as a political tool has backfired so spectacularly that even the king himself is now entangled in the fallout of Starmer's miscalculation. Instead of being seen as a shrewd statesman, Starmer is being painted as a weak, desperate politician who willingly turned himself into a messenger boy for Trump. And the backlash has been swift and brutal. Over 70,000 British citizens have signed a petition demanding that Trump's invitation be revoked, and this number is growing by the hour. MPs from across the political spectrum are openly ridiculing Starmer's misstep, questioning how a seasoned politician could have misjudged the situation so disastrously. Even members of Starmer's own Labour Party are finding it difficult to justify why their leader, who once prided himself on being a critic of Trump, has now stooped so low as to hand-deliver an invitation fit for royalty to a president whose actions are currently undermining Western unity. This debacle is a classic example of the Starmer effect, a pattern where he, in his constant attempts to appear as a statesman, ends up making weak, desperate decisions that spectacularly collapse around him. His bid to secure Britain's position as a key US ally has instead resulted in a self-inflicted political crisis, one that has left him battered, ridiculed, and completely exposed. To fully understand just how disastrous Starmer's maneuver was, we need to examine the sheer level of desperation on display when he handed Trump King Charles' invitation. This was not the measured, confident diplomacy that a British Prime Minister is expected to exhibit. This was a spectacle of surrendering, an almost pathetic attempt at winning Trump's favor, a pitiful performance that made Starmer look more like a nervous apprentice than the leader of one of the world's most significant nations.
That is really nice. I must make sure his signature's on that. Otherwise, it's not quite as meaningful. It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've known him, gotten to know him very well, actually. first term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph.
Yeah, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic, an unprecedented second
That's a
state
great-
visit, and he
great
wants
honor.
to talk that through with you.
And that says at Windsor. That's
Yes.
really something.
Yes. What I haven't got yet is your answer. I do need to.
The answer is yes.
As he pulled out the embossed letter, which bore the bold, unmistakable signature of King Charles himself, Starmer beamed nervously, as if he had just handed over an offering to an emperor. He fawned over Trump, laughed at his jokes, and parroted his words back to him, all in a bid to ensure that Britain remained a priority in Trump's foreign policy calculations. But what he failed to grasp was the sheer imbalance of power in that room. Starmer was there to plead for attention, while Trump, knowing just how desperately the British Prime Minister wanted his approval, played the role of a disinterested monarch indulging a subordinate. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive videos on the groundbreaking changes happening in British politics. Let's continue now. Starmer's real humiliation wasn't complete until Trump's very next move, which would leave Britain and Starmer deeply compromised on the global stage. Within 24 hours of Starmer handing over the royal invitation, Trump was already making headlines for all the wrong reasons. This time, it wasn't about honoring Britain's alliance, nor was it about the historic nature of his upcoming visit. Instead, Trump had just staged a diplomatic ambush against one of Britain's closest allies, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Inside the Oval Office, in a moment of televised humiliation, Trump and his Vice President, J.D. Vance, tore into Zelensky in front of the world's media.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly what
this.
you're doing.
Not
You're in
dictate.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position.
I
You don't
was-
have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what you're
You're
speaking
gambling
about?
with
What you're
World
speaking
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country,
I'm
that's
with
backed
all respect to
you
your
far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank you?
The scene was brutal. This was not just an insult to Ukraine, it was a strategic disaster for Britain. By handing Trump an invitation just before this humiliating episode, Starmer had positioned Britain as Trump's willing accomplice, as the country that rolled out the red carpet for a leader who had just publicly berated Ukraine's president. It wasn't just poor timing, it was a catastrophic miscalculation, one that tied Britain to Trump's increasingly unpredictable and destabilizing policies. And the backlash was immediate. Within hours, a political firestorm erupted in Britain. The reaction was swift, furious, and widespread. Scottish National Party MP Stephen Gethins described Trump's behaviour as grotesque and called for the immediate cancellation of the state visit. Scottish First Minister John Swinney insisted that unless Trump fully backed Ukraine, he should not be welcomed in Britain. Across the country, anti-Trump demonstrations are already being planned, with campaigners mobilising against the visit. Even Labour figures, who are usually silent in the face of Starmer's diplomatic blunders, have been left cringing at his miscalculation, but Starmer refuses to admit fault. Instead, he dismissed the growing crisis as nothing more than rhetoric, claiming that he wasn't going to be diverted by opposition figures. This arrogant refusal to acknowledge reality has only made things worse.
Yes, on the question of the US, look, I spoke to President Trump last night. I'm not going to go through the details of that conversation, but I would not be taking this step down this road if I didn't think that it was something that would yield a positive outcome in terms of ensuring that we move together, Ukraine, Europe, the UK and the US, together towards a lasting peace. And so that's the way I've approached this in the last few.
The results of Starmer's misstep are severe and lasting. His decision to hand-deliver an invitation to Trump has tied Britain to a leader who is alienating allies, undermining global security, and humiliating European partners. By doing so, Starmer has undermined Britain's credibility on the world stage and humiliated himself by appearing weak and desperate. Further, he dragged King Charles into an avoidable diplomatic crisis and fueled public outrage that is now demanding the visit be revoked. However, Starmer cannot revoke the invitation now. That's because doing so will be disrespectful to Trump, something Starmer wants to avoid at all costs. Instead, Starmer prefers to allow Trump to visit the UK, despite him openly deserting Ukraine. Now, Starmer has made himself as a leader who has sided with Trump, the man who humiliated Zelensky and pushed Ukraine into the corner. Soon, he will be welcoming him on his state visit to the UK, while also making King Charles a political figure and controversial. Further, this sabotages his effort to form a coalition of the willing in Europe to ensure Ukraine's peace or to provide support for Ukraine. What do you think? Should Trump be allowed to come to the UK on a state visit? Isn't it true that if Trump's invitation is revoked, he will feel disrespected and can punish Starmer harshly? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on how Trump will treat the UK, knowing that Starmer is trying to create a front in support of Ukraine. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to get more updates on British politics and how events are changing it. Until the next video, stay tuned.